Hey everyone. Sorry for the wait. I know it's been a little bit longer of a wait time, but I did promise a render video for you and I plan to deliver. This time it is Cloud Strive's iconic sword, the Buster Sword from the Final Fantasy franchise. Now, Cloud made it famous, but there were two other wielders before him. Those were Angel Hewley and Zack Fair. Now, this is a giant broadsword with two materia slots, so that way you can customize it to fit whatever playstyle you want. Just slap in your materia in there and have a grand old time. Now, Final Fantasy VII is the only Final Fantasy game I've ever played. And that was the original one that I played through completion. I did buy the remake, I did start playing it, and then I stopped playing it. And when I told people where I stopped at, they're like, "You're one battle away from finishing the game. Just go do it." And the thing is, it's been so long since I've played it, I'd probably have to go back into the game, relearn how to play it, and go through the nightmare of that again, like I did with God of War and the Valkyrie Queen. Oh, God. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, the render is a mix of classic and the remake design. And this was actually rendered over the course of an hour, or 3.5 if you count the failed attempt that I did before this one. I actually rendered an entire model, was recording for over 2 hours, and I was trying to add in battle damage, and I did something different with the handle, and I was trying to do something different with the details, and it just was not working out at all. I ended up having to scrap the entire thing and re-record and re-render what I have for you today. Overall, this is a pretty simple design, but the details that are in the blade and towards like the guard and everything, that's what really makes the sword a headache to render for me. Now I looked at pictures of figures, of official artwork, fan art, and cosplay prompts to find a mix of styles and details that I liked for my render. And I ended up doing a lot of mirroring for this one, and that was because, for one, I was recording very early in the morning after a very long day, and I would constantly find things I would need to like fix or that I forgot, and instead of deleting the bodies or rolling back the timeline, I would just hide the one that I wanted to delete and then do all the work that I needed to and remirror. So then I ended up with over like 60 bodies on my timeline. Yeah, needless to say, Fusion was not liking that all that much. And when I tried to go delete stuff, it would just create more problems. So they're just there forever now. Now, the old render, the details on the blade, I actually tried to embed the negative details. But because of that, I couldn't actually put paint onto the faces of the detail pieces because they were still considered part of the entire blade. And because of that, I couldn't add in any color that I wanted to help break up everything. So, on this one, I opted to raise those, and I was able to kind of find a workaround for that because Fusion was still being kind of finicky about it. Now, normally, I would walk you through all of the paint and textures that I used for this, but instead, I'm just going to give you a bullet point of the different types of stuff that I use because I used more paint on this than on any of my other renders that I've done. And even though it doesn't look like it, trust me, everything is there somewhere. But going down the list, I used a couple of different metal textures for the handle. I used two different kinds of leathers for the grip. Surprisingly, I used granite textures for the blade face and the guard because they were the closest thing I could get to looking like hammered metal because there is none, surprisingly, in Fusion. There is a mirror texture for the blade taper. There's a metallic flake. There's gloss metallic and matte metallic paints. I did make a few custom colors. And for my buddy Ryan, who's the Shadows13 over on Twitch, I used yellow and red stained glass for the materia. when I started getting to the painting process, I sent him a message asking him what his favorite materials were, because he is one of the biggest Final Fantasy fans that I know. I mean, he has Genova tattooed on his hand. And he told me, he's like, I like one for summoning and I like one for enemy skills. So those materia in there are for you, buddy. Hope you like that. But in closing, this was actually much more difficult to render than I originally thought it was going to be. But it was a fun challenge. I honestly feel this would be a better physical build for me to do in the future. So again, once I get my workshop set up, I will probably make that happen. And I know it doesn't look 100% accurate, but I'm satisfied with it. And the big Final Fantasy friends that I have in my life all like it as well, so I'm satisfied. Now, I do have some news. There is going to be a pause in future renders, and I'll tell you why. On Twitter, I recently said that some exciting but terrifying things were happening in my life, and that's because I recently landed a very, very good job. The only problem is it's 2 hours away from where I currently live, and trying to find decent housing out that way is proving to be a lot more difficult than I originally thought it was going to be. Now, renders will continue, but they would probably be more spaced out due to the hours I'm going to be working. I'm going to be doing anywhere from 10 to 11 and a half hour days with even more overtime or even weekends happening. So they'll happen. They just probably won't be one shots anymore. But again, this is all dependent on if I can actually find a decent place to live out there. So that's the big news that I had. As always, give this video a like, comment down below if you got something to say. Consider subscribing here to the YouTube channel and ringing the bell down below so that way you know when render videos go live. Follow me over on Twitter so that way you can see work in progress pictures, take part in future polls, and just to see me rant about stuff. And join me on those rants if you so desire. Thanks for watching, everyone. As always, stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next render video whenever it gets made.